I look serious enough. This morning's talk, Dharma talk, is titled Awareness as Space. Yes. So I wanted to talk more about that, possibly respond to questions about that. These are concepts. The word awareness is a concept. The word space is a concept. The word as is a concept. Part of our very relative truth, very relative language, up and down, back and forth, plus and minus. It's here, it's not here. We hear it, we don't hear it. We're completely baffled by this aspect, this plus and minus aspect of the world. We tend to see something arise and we either cling to it, want more of it, want to change it a little bit, want to modify it, or we want to push it away and get rid of it, make it go. I don't like that, take it away. Or maybe we do the third of the three poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance, which is we distract ourselves, we ignore. This is not about this talk. It's not about, and Buddhism itself is not about correcting anyone. It's a path whereby you can become more aware. It just happens to have started a long time ago. So therefore, people who practice this as a spiritual path, a path of transcendence, may be equated with all the other spiritual paths. It's quite a bit different, actually. It is not about believing or disbelieving. This is why it's called the middle way. It's a relative way of saying not too tight, not too loose. We don't grab onto this. We don't let that go. We don't do anything with it. What do we do? Aware. How do we as individuals become more aware when what we're up against, whether we're in the kitchen, walking down the road by ourselves, at our job, working with our coworkers, our friends, our neighbors, our family, our enemies, for that matter, or people that we don't have a good relationship with, or difficult. How do we bring awareness into that to see fundamentally what that is, rather than jump to extremes, jump to some kind of positionality on, I don't like that, that needs to go, or I really like that, I need more of that, we need more of that. Commonly referred to this whole structure as the eight worldly dharmas, and most of the world is functioning this way. Success and failure, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, and so on. We can go on and on with all kinds of polarities. The interesting thing about this, the more you bring awareness to any one of these, the more you see that the one side is getting its meaning from the other side. You can't have just pleasure. You can't have just pain. Those are very, very interestingly linked. And one of the ways I like to bring this into maybe a little bit more of an objective context is to say that we have nerve endings. We'll pick on one of the sense fields, sense of touch. If you go like this, it's very pleasant. And if you go like this, or if I were to cut myself, which I'm not going to take the demonstration that far, but or pinch or something like that, same nerve ending. Same nerve ending, just one is you overdo it, and so you have aggression. And the other way, you have passion. So those get very mixed up. It gets very confusing and very, the other C word I like to use is complicated. It's extremely, the practice is simple, but what you bring that awareness to is very, very complicated. It's so complicated that if you endeavor to go in and try to modify it or change it, it's like jumping into an octopus. Well, maybe not exactly, but that's the term, that's the image I'm going to use. But it's because it's like there's so many things going on there that you don't know how to prioritize anything, because you're doing it out of what? Passion, aggression, ignorance. You're operating out of the desire to get rid of something, or the desire to appropriate something. And what you're doing is you're trying to get rid of something without really examining it. And what you end up doing is pushing on the concept of it rather than the thing itself. It's not that you couldn't get rid of it or even move it or modify it or turn down the volume. But when we jump to conclusions about things, we shut down the investigating part of the mind out of fear. So awareness as space is experienced by ego as doubt. Too much space. What's happening? I got to know what's happening. I got to know what's going on. I got to figure this out. I can't handle this. This is why it is so difficult for people to sit down, hold very still, hold this position, and just look at not much. It might start out as all kinds of crazy stuff. It could start out as experiencing extreme aggression, maybe so much that you can't stay there. What would I say to that? How would I respond to that? Well, get up. You don't have to stay there and torture yourself. Go have a Pepsi. Now, it's not exactly a break. You're just kind of backing out of the examination room. You're going, I'm going to go out here for a while, rest for a minute, and then I'll come back and have some objectivity about it. Because if you start taking it personally or assuming some kind of personal cause and effect, somebody's after you, or you got a raw deal, you don't deserve this. If you go into any kind of personality about it, then we have more inability to see clearly. It's very interesting that the more you practice this, and I've done a lot of it, the more you practice this, the more the awareness just starts to seep into everything. It's like a super self-consciousness. It's like what is that? Too much information. You're getting too much stuff is coming in. Like a moment ago, I said to see clearly. Do you remember me saying that? But part of a sentence, to see clearly. My awareness when that arose, I'm just going to use this as an example because it's happening constantly. Not only with this dynamic, this matrix here we call a human being, but with everything else I see and everyone else I talk to and interact with. To see, I noticed that I didn't say to see clearly. I said to see clearly. And I didn't try to get rid of it necessarily or justify it or do anything with it. I just noticed that I don't enunciate my words very well, which is not a criticism. It's just noticing that happens. It's just part of the awareness. This is what you're buying into if you practice meditation. You're going to get to look at every little stitch that you do as an individual ego or as a consciousness, however you want to call it. It is not comfortable. On the other hand, you want to see the truth? Or do you want to just live the rest of your life with some kind of preconception about what your life is? This is what people miss their life by refusing to actually see the incredible space within which they arose as a human being, in which they were born. And immediately people who are also afraid of space start giving them all kinds of instructions about it's this, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, this is the way you should act. Do that, everything. And it's not that some of those forms aren't necessary, of course. Certainly have to help people become enculturated or socialized so that we can function as a community and where we support each other. Practice of meditation introduces us to spaciousness or awareness, or the technical word in the tradition is called vipassana, is the Sanskrit word, which means panoramic awareness. In Tibetan, it's laktung, which means panoramic awareness. And as we practice, the difficulty is when the space starts to open up. As we practice, it gets a little scary because our self-centeredness or our ego doesn't like that. We want results. We want to be more confident. We want to be more successful. We want to be more intelligent. We want to be more insightful. We want things to be different than they are. And the practice of meditation is seeing how things are. That's why the word shikantaza, just precisely this. Have to start at square one. The great Japanese teacher came to the United States back in about 1960. Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, the way he taught was in his book Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. He even used one of the teachings, be a beginner. He used that as the title for the book. It's like always when you come back, it's always back to square one. You're just like you've never done this before. The only thing you know to do is put your hands in this position, hold still. You could put them in this position. You could do this. This would be all right. But this is something we do casually. So my recommendation is, having done a lot of both, I would say this would probably be preferable unless it creates problems and you're pulling on your back. Then you can also set your hands on a pillow. That would be okay. And take your time. So if this is difficult or painful, in the Japanese tradition, quite often they just, they want these monks are a little bit more, macho. Part of it's the culture, probably. Sokuzan.
What did you mean when you said take your time just now?
I'm saying go easy on yourself. Don't like I was saying, get up and have a Pepsi. Of course, you're probably not gonna have a Pepsi. You're probably gonna have a Coke. So, but go slow. Come back in. Be persistent. But this is why we have strong forms here, but they're based on 40 years of looking at this situation. So some things need to be fairly tight, and other things are not necessarily helpful. Yes.
I find it really difficult to hold my seat when I get anxious. There's just this impulse to move. Other things are easier to watch. Mm-hmm. How do we work with that really strong impulse to get up, to leave the cushion?
So everyone's a little different there. Everyone has a different body. Some people just sit down. It took me years to discover this. Some people just sit down and they can just sit there. They just sit still and they can sit there for an hour. And if you say, doesn't that bother your legs? No, really. Everyone is very different in this way. And so if you're sitting down and maybe your body is okay, but you're feeling anxious, your mind is spinning around, then I would say halfway, do a little bit of it. Don't do so much that you're eventually starting to go to war with that or trying to shut it down. So do a little bit. One of the things I say if I'm teaching meditation to 6 or 7 year old, which I have done, so if you, is hold very, very still and be very quiet. Hold very still for 2 minutes. And then, somewhere in that area, count to 20 or something. And then go ahead and move your body, stretch a little bit, and then return to that again. You could even get up and go for a walk. You could go take a nap if you're really sleepy. The important thing is repetition, 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 repetition. Keep coming in, keep coming in. Sit down, sit down. Even though you get up and say, I can't do this right. Yes, you can. The first part of the first part of the path is actually gathering the energy to actually even do this, and it's your path. It's not a belief system, so therefore we don't have the support of just praying or just believing in something greater than ourselves. But we do have those. We do have ourselves. We have our body. We have our mind. We have our thoughts, our ideas. We have a building. And we can say, well, I'm going to train my mind. I'm going to study Buddhism. I may technically become a Buddhist, and I may not. I may just study it. I have several students who just study Buddhism. They don't necessarily consider themselves Buddhists, and I don't mind. They can do it however they want to. Some people want to do this more, as a word I often use is more glue, because it's really, everything is drawing you away from this. This is why we have monasteries. It's so that you can be here and you can focus on this. because there's not a lot of reward here. There is reward, but it's very subtle. What it is. Yes, sir.
Back to your concept of space. When we talk about the walls of the mind, there's a certain space there. Is that the same as the space that you're talking about?
So seeing that there is a wall in the mind, or see that there's some kind of something stopping you from seeing more clearly, wall of the mind, which could be like opinions. As soon as you see that you have an opinion about something, it starts to kind of come apart, or it doesn't have, has less duration to it, because you're already kind of thinking this is kind of something that is in front of something else you're trying to want to see that. So that wall, or a structure in the mind, opinions, ideas, concepts, hopes, fears, and all of that. So I'm saying this, the idea there is to bring, so it could be, this idea there is to develop, by holding still and looking, the ability to see very clearly whatever arises fearlessly. To see it, even though it's something you would like to back away from and get out of, or, it's like, this is not what I bargained for. This part of the thinking process is too much, or too whatever. And so to have the persistence to just stay there, and awareness is always polarized until it's not. So it's always there's always awareness and what arises in awareness, but we have to start somewhere. So we start with the space in which things occur, just like in music, there's all kinds of space, with sounds, and that's a very you can't get rid of that part of it. You can't get rid of the space in visual art. This is why quite often people that are inspired to see what is really true might go towards that through any one of the arts, because those are areas that are dealing with usually a particular one of the six sense fields, and emphasizing that, and try to understand and try to see how does something get created in space. I do it by making stuff up. It's just fun. Once you realize there's nothing to be afraid of particularly, then you can make up anything. And whether people think you're funny or creative or not is not as important as it was maybe at one time. Yes, Bailey.
When I'm at work, I tend to get angry quite often.
Yes.
And sometimes
Yeah.
I will try to pause and come back to my senses, or just allow more space.
Okay.
But when that pause is over, everything seems to come rushing back.
That's awareness. It's still awareness. Yeah, go ahead. What's
What
your
is
question?
the point of that space if it's not to change something?
Well, it is about change. It's definitely about change, but it's not about a changer. So you try to do it. By doing this, you're buying into relative truth, and you're trying to squeeze happiness or success out of relativity, and it's very impersonal. It's plus minus plus minus. It's like. And the awareness, as you keep bringing awareness to it and just don't give up, but you're actually on the path. By the way you describe that, that's called post-meditation experience. It's called meditation in action. You're actually looking at it. You're working with your anger. You're able to describe it very clearly. What is going on? Awareness. I'm not saying the feeling isn't scratchy, but you just do it anyway. You just stay there with that and observe that. Very much like that, we've all seen, most of us seen the movie The Matrix. It's like looking at the world, but then pretty soon you start to see all the spaces and the dots, and all the movement of things just in their impersonal energy, coming and going, coming and going. The anger that's happening there is actually just energy. And I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to encourage you to just say, well, it's just energy. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. You may have to be with that energy, that what I'm calling energy in its personal, rough, abrasive sense for quite a while. I personally, as a Dharma teacher, don't know how long that will take you. I just know that when I hear you talk, that's the path. And then I would just, my job, you could say, then as a Dharma teacher is to encourage you to keep going. And then if you run into other kinds of dynamics there, we may talk about this and work with this in a different way. But right now, that sounds good.
How
Yes.
do I not fixate on the changer?
You're seeing that you're fixating. And so it takes a while. You see that you're fixating, and then you see that you're fixating. And then through your awareness, you'll notice that fixation probably lessens. But if you grasp on the lessening, it starts to increase because it's relative truth. If you fight with, as it's been said by Byron Katie, if you fight with reality, you're going to lose 100% of the time. If you fight with if you struggle with anything, you will lose from the point of view of self. There's other people that have power of positive thinking. There are people with hundreds of books out there that are encouraging everybody to just manifest whatever you want. And yeah, there's something to that, but it's circular. You'll pay for that on some level, not like you're going to pay. I don't mean that. I'm just saying it's circular. What comes will go. What goes will come back. It's just amazing. Yes.
Questions from people online.
Yes.
The first one from Chikmei up in Traverse City.
Yes.
He asks, does the mundane exist through the segmentation of the super mundane?
What? Chikmei, you should be able to answer that. Yes and no. Say that again. Segmentation.
Does the mundane
Solid stuff.
exist
Me.
through the segmentation
Yeah.
of the super mundane?
No.
Do you have an antic for the super mundane?
Do I have an antic?
For the super mundane? I'm curious
Yeah.
what that
I'm
looks
looking at it. Does that feel like warfare?
like. No, it feels like a compliment.
Oh. Where's my stick? Yes,
Do you have more?
probably not. Nothing's coming.
Stephen has a question. He says, thank you, Sokuzan. As a beginner, I seem to witness lots of aggression, those thoughts of anger, shame of past aggressions, feelings of confusion. Is the appropriate way to witness and feel these things is to feel them fully, but somehow know that they are too just a wave in the ocean?
I'm following you, Stephen, and yeah, they're just a wave in the ocean, and that's the way it's taught. It's just an ocean. It's just things bubbling up and going away and bubbling up. But that's conceptual stuff, and that works a little bit. A little bit of that is good, but quite often, if somebody's very good at defining or reading or explaining things that way, we'll kind of just go to the concepts. We'll read more Dharma books that are that fluff things up. And the way it looks over here seems to be necessary to find a way with you personally, which may be sitting for an hour a day, whatever you may be doing, but to go in and sink down what I call below the radar of ego, to do enough practice so that busyness, that warfare, that sadness, or that frustration, or the shame, or whatever it seems to be roiling around on the surface, to allow the awareness to not dismiss that. I'm not talking about ignorance, not to explain that or justify it or point to somebody or even call it just a wave in the ocean. It's like telling someone recently, a student of mine was told by another person who had been reading Eckhart Tolle. It was a wonderful, very, very entertaining fellow and just cute as can be. Much sweeter looking than this old man. And who just said, why don't you just be here now? The power of now, just be here now. I mean, he was talking to somebody who's having really intense difficulty. You can't do that. You can't. I never say be here now to anyone. That's very, very disrespectful to someone to say that. And that doesn't mean that the person who said that is deliberately doing that. They're probably extremely sincere, wanting to help. I'm not saying they're not sincere, that they don't care about the person. It's just that they're speaking out of their opinions and their ideas and out of a grasping at relative truth, right and wrong, good and bad, success and failure, enlightenment and delusion. I have to transcend that. When we say you have to, you don't have to do anything. You can just keep going, lifetime after lifetime after life. It just takes a long time, so we don't really notice all these lifetimes. We just think this is the one. Probably not, yes.
A question from William Murray.
I know William Murray.
He asks, is the space around something, whether music or an object, what creates what that something is? Is that what makes everything connected, since you say nothing is separate?
Probably. I can't say much more than that. Elaborate questions kind of are just elaborate. They're elaborate. So quite often people say, ask elaborate questions. So the question I want to ask, Sokuzan, is when I'm dealing with the various emotions and feelings that are coming up and going, and I feel that some situation feels more personal than the other one, then someone else comes along and changes that by telling me something else about that, then should I work on, but what I want to say is, just keep going. I'm going, okay. But I'm saying direct questions, as direct as you can. Those are seem to work the best. Not that the other kind aren't maybe helpful to you to ask them, but it's very difficult for me to be. I want to help you, but I'm taking off into your imaginary ideas about what the issue is, rather than just saying, I feel like crap. What do I do? And I'm going to say, hold still, look at the crap. Because if you keep trying to get away from it, it's going to chase you. If you keep trying to push on it, it's going to push back. If you keep trying to ignore it, it's going to come around and bite you in the butt. It's just the way that stuff works. Thea.
So when you are experiencing the irritation and busyness of the everyday life, doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, because it feels like I don't have time to myself because I have to do this.
Yes, I understand.
How in those situations do you bring space? Because you can't not do it.
Yeah.
The things you have to do. So
I can help you with that, but you have to listen to what I'm saying. Okay. In the situation, in the mix, we're householder meditators. I mean, even though the people who live in the temple are practice residents, do a lot of sitting. Still, most of them have some kind of job. Not everybody, but some goes, leaves, and you come here and you practice with us, and you've been coming for years, and you practice on your own. You have a full-time job as a professor of art, and then all of the other things that you're describing of your family and all of that. And I'm saying the only thing I can say is the meditation in action, or the work that you need to do in your everyday situation, which I'm understanding what you're saying. There needs to be a really strong basis and sitting practice. So a lot of sitting. One of the things that I was leading to a little while ago that I didn't mention is block sitting. Is, quite often we have a practice of, 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour a day, or every 3 days or 8 days. And, I understand it's hard to schedule. You have family and job and everything. It's just really hard to do. I know that. Spend some time doing that. So quite often I would just go into retreat, many times go into retreat, so I could kind of get away from all of this and create my own kind of mini monastery or whatever. And so what I would say in your situation would be do some block sitting on your own. Find some time so that you can, as I said before, drop below the radar of ego. Because if you're it's not that the daily practice isn't good. It is. But at some point, we need to take that daily practice and go from an hour a day or 45 minutes a day right down to 4 hours a day. Sit down and stay there for 4 hours. It's just something that has started to rise over from talking to people about meditation for many, many years, working with my own situation. There's something about sitting down, holding still, and not doing anything else. Your whole job there is just to watch what your mind does. If you hold the body very, very still, you will see more and more clearly how the mind keeps just making stuff up. Imagining this, imagining that, being afraid of this, worrying about this. You might spend the first 2 hours just going this way and then that way, going this way. And then you might start to fall asleep a little bit, and then you wake back up. And then maybe you'll go get a cup of coffee and come back and sit back down, which is fine. Go to the bathroom, come back down. It's just that 4 hours, and it could be 3 hours and a half or something, but it could be 4 hours and a half. But some kind of large chunk block of sitting where you hold all the rest of everything else is put on hold, and all you're going to do is watch the part that is going into this everyday life and dealing with all of the pluses and minuses and passion, aggression, ignorance of all the world that is pretty crazy. To actually sit down and soften that up so that the insight part of the mind, the stability needs to be there too. You need to be able to hold still. That's what that's about. But then the insight or the awareness part of the mind, it's like an invisible muscle. It just starts to get sharper. And eventually the instead of the thinking process being out in front, that what comes out in front is awareness. It's actually not so much awareness, it's just much more space out in front of the thought process. So when you walk into a room, walk into your job, walk into a party store, walk down the street, what you're leading with your awareness. In other words, you see green, you see blue, you see people's shapes coming and going. You see the fundamental, it's like the matrix. You actually see the fundamental nature of everything where there's no warfare going on at all. You begin to see in your own consciousness that you're not separate from everything that's coming and going. Powerful. And to me, that's the only medication, is to bring more space in that matrix of pushing, pulling, confusion, feeling like you don't have enough time. And just about everyone I talk to talks about that on some level. And I experienced that too. Not like I did years ago, but this is pulling, that's pulling. Just recently had some really difficult things happen in the context of working with people who practice. So sometimes it gets really, really intense, and all you can do is just be present and work with not trying to be some kind of special person who has everything under control. Sometimes if we kind of get used to being kind of somewhat superior to everything, then when the tsunami, can the tsunami hit the fan? Yeah, the tsunami hits the fan. Then suddenly, I don't care how much awareness you've done, you're going to tumble. You're going to fall over. The difference may be is you don't take it personally. You don't necessarily blame anybody. You see cause and effect for what it is, very impersonal thing that's going on, and you know who you are. You know that you're not separate from anything. And knowing that is completely feels very, very warm. It's very warm. I don't know how else to say it. And even the most ugly, gnarly thing that comes and stumbles around in front of you and grabs you by the ankles and says, "You're going down." You feel warm. You're not gonna put up with that, but you a strong feeling of warmth about that whole thing. That emptiness is not, that awareness is not empty in the relative sense. It's completely present. Anything else? Pretty hard to ask a question after a lot of warm stuff. Yes.
From Chris, he asks, I'm trying to understand karma a little bit better. Does good or bad karma bring consequences or reactions?
Sure. You push on this, that goes down. You hit those sticks together, you have a sound. So there's the cause and effect is happening. It's just that the cause and effect, the thing that's happening in cause and effect is so complicated. This not only hits that, like this, but there's all the other things that led up to this simple little sound. Somebody had to make this glass. Somebody had to make this cup. Somebody had to make these hands. Somebody had to be here to pick up the cup to do that. It's very complicated to have just that. It's the momentariness of our life that we're completely missing because we're living in an imaginary past, an imaginary future, the two thens. Back then, and when this happens up there, the future then, we're always living in those. When we're, when you'll miss your life. It's that simple, and it's that complicated. Simple and complicated are not mutually, whatever that other word is. Sent you.
Right now, I see a sharp divide between whatever arises in the space that it's showing up in. Can what arises show up as just more space?
Yeah. What arises is space. It's not, it's empty. Everything is empty of what we think it is, and therefore it's completely brilliant.
How can we see that?
Persist in this lifetime. Here you are embodied in this lifetime. Very hard to practice in that space between lives. Or you can, but it's not like this. This is, you can do it here. Here you have a body. You could say you have a body, you are a body, you have a body mind. You're working very definitely in the relative area. In this area, you can actually practice. But once you're gone, then you're back in, in between this. And then this is like a big school. So study and learn. Yes, sir.
How do you bring precision to your awareness?
So one of the ways that it's taught is shamatha vipassana, or shine and laktung, the Tibetan, and the other first one is the Sanskrit. And quite often, this is the way it's taught, to do the precision first. Shine, just follow the breath. Follow the breath. When thoughts arise, label thinking, return to the breath. This is the way I was taught in the 70s. And that's the way I was trained to teach, and that's the way I taught for a while. But it's not looking that way to me anymore. So it's looking more like you may need to do that, but not until you do it yourself, rather than be taught a technique and to do that. That might work if you're teaching thousands of people, but if you only have, a couple dozen people, you can talk to them all individually. I think it's good to teach shikantaza. And the precision will come out of your particular practice. So it'll be very much personal to you. You may, when I say hold still and watch what moves, keep all the senses open, one person may be sitting and just very precisely following the breath. And maybe doing that out of a feeling of not being precise enough. Like it sounds like maybe happening with you. That's still awareness. It's still awareness. We're not talking about an awareness that just sees good stuff. We're talking about awareness that actually is including everything in the room, outside the room, in the trees, in the clouds, in the land. It can include. So when you do that, it can get very overwhelming. And so, but a lot of that overwhelm comes from positing or having kind of a hidden belief that there is somebody that can experience all that. So that begins to erode at some point. It both erodes and it doesn't erode. Everything is stacked against you as far as ego. Everything is just totally stacked so that you're going to lose. Who you think you are is going to lose. But on the other hand, which of course we have two hands, on the other hand, there's really nothing to lose. So therefore, it's just realization, and it goes all the way down. It's turtles all the way down. Look it up. Yes, sir.
So how do you use your awareness with precision?
Well, in the way we're talking here, it's not a matter of using it particularly. It's not like a hammer drill. You can drill a hole in the wall. But it does involve relating with things in a precise way. So, like I was just talking about the language. I never say anything without being really aware of what I'm saying. This doesn't mean I'm doing it ahead of time. I'm doing it as I don't think up stuff and talk. When I try to do that, I'm terrible. I would get booed off stage. Of course, I'm not really on stage. Kind of. I'm in front of everybody. Anything else before I go to Lisa's question? Okay, Lisa.
How you were talking about the two thens, how do we be aware of those without getting stuck living in one of the thens or both of them?
No, just watch the stuckness. Because if you just watch it and you don't push it away, aggression, and you don't fluff it up or explain it or blame anybody, including yourself, you don't do anything with it, but just watch it. It's like just watching a fish swim. Interesting, but it's none of your business. You have no say-so about a fish. You actually have no say-so about your thoughts. It just looks like you do. This is why we're completely sucked into, magnetized into that, because we think there's a solid being or self. So it's just a matter of, I don't mean to be dismissive by saying, well, it's just a matter of doing this. I don't mean that. I mean that you're already doing that. If you're asking that question, then the awareness is already there. And so I would say, in one way, more is better. Sit more. And the other way, less is better. Don't add. Don't add too much on it. And trust the awareness that is arising, that is able to even ask that question. That's a powerful inquiry that you just talked about. There. How are you aware of past and future? You can see that past and future are really similar. They're really, it's like it says, I've said so many times in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. I think in the words of the Queen, he puts in the mouth of the Queen. It's a poor memory that doesn't work in both directions. So past and future. Further.
No, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Yes. What was your name again?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Okay.
You talked about it a little bit there, about
Okay.
reading books and everything. How is that knowledge, not space?
Because we grasp at it, we solidify it. We grasp at this and we reject that, and we like this, we don't like that, and we put little ruffles around this side of it, and we punch holes in this area and take this area. I've taken that out like that. We discriminate, and the discrimination is based on what? Hope and fear. Not based on wisdom. There's discriminating awareness wisdom that actually sees the differences between things without evaluation. Very difficult to look at anything without having some kind of evaluation come up as a belief. On the other hand, in awareness, everything is allowable. So discrimination may come, but it doesn't belong to anyone. So there's no discriminator. It's not about making everything all shiny and sweet and rosy. It's about being completely, totally present. It's a vast universe, and it's on the move all the time, unless it's not. Go ahead.
So did you say that you can have knowledge but not opinions about it?
Yeah, it's not the idea of getting rid of opinions. It's seeing that that's what they are. seeing that there's an opinion, and the less you activate it or crank it up or resort to it for support. We see people doing this often. Well, I've always thought, well, what I was taught was this or this. Well, I've always thought that this was true or that was true. Or just arises as not so much out of concepts, but out of an emotional dynamic, which is harder to see, but can be seen and understood. And when we see that, then if we see that clearly, we see we don't have to get rid of your eyebrows. You don't have to get rid of relative truth. You don't have to do it. You don't have to go to war with anything. Everything should be included with intelligence and understanding and you could say compassion. So that's why everything is warm. The emptiness is not a cold emptiness of outer space, that kind of emptiness. Yes.
Sokuzan from Traverse City has a question.
Yes.
She asks, what is it that is present?
What was that?
What is it that is present?
It's itlessness, which has nothing to do with Italy. Oh, I should be looking at her. That's actually not her. That's me. It's actually not me. It's a representation. Oh no, I'm getting a migraine. Yes, she's looking at me through that, right? Right.
Along with 13 other people.
Very good. So it's what is it? It's not a. It's just awareness. So for lack of a better way of talking about it, it's just when you realize you realize that you're not a thing. You're not just another thing that can be good or bad or lose or win. You're Buddha nature. Tathagata Garbha. It's a difficult thing that everyone has or is. It's your birthright. Yes, sir.
What is?
Ziz.
Is.
Ziz. Ziz. What is? It's isn't. Only looks different. It's with a different hat. JD, you have a question? No? So, Ben, you have a question? Did you come here clear from California?
Yeah.
No question. So I made everything completely clear for you. No. Yes,
Does
sir.
karma have a quality of being good or bad?
Relatively, but as we understand it, over time we begin to see that it's not about getting attached to that and trying to just have good karma or not have bad karma. So there's something to be said about that. But the awareness is what is important. It may be in a relative, it may be bad, it may be difficult, it may be painful. Another kind of karma may be good, but everything is fluctuating all the time. Everything is very, very circular. So if you grasp at it, you're drawn into the circularity. But if you just look at it and then also look at your, something is difficult or painful, if the word bad karma comes up, if it comes up on its own, then just don't do anything more with it. Don't necessarily start to explain or go into the bad karma business or books on bad karma or telling everybody about bad karma. Just look at it. If you just look at it and don't, passion, aggression, and ignorance are turned way down, it won't last. It needs to gets its energy from warfare, from passion, aggression, and ignorance. It gets its energy to be something that you have to deal with, and then it's going to take only the president can handle or something like that. It's a crazy world. More?
Does good equal good, bad equal bad in terms of karma?
Is that a trick question?
No.
No. I'm not sure if this is how you're asking it, but I would say, yeah, I would just leave it at that. I wouldn't spend much time going into the good and bad. It's just things arise that are difficult, things arise that are smooth and soft and gentle and accommodating, and then things go the other way. And they're always going to be, it's just the nature of being alive that you're going to have all these things happen. And so this is why we have a spiritual path. Because if it's just a mundane path, it's not a matter of being right or wrong. It's just that nothing lasts. Impermanence, it's one of the 4 marks of existence. Impermanence, suffering, egolessness, and peace. Those are the 4.
To me, to ask that question about karma, is that making karma into something?
Yeah,
So is karma ever a thing?
it's just a concept about motion. It's just a concept about cause and effect, cause and effect. Do this, that happens. You do that, that happens. If this is there, then that happens. This is there, then that happens. It's just the nature of
Karma.
yes.
Gail Cadeau from Minneapolis
Yes.
asks, is
Gail Cadeau.
awareness space?
Yes. So the title of the talk is Awareness as Space. And the ego or the personal experience of that is too much space. You need to fill it up with ideas, opinions, thoughts. But to one who is retraining or reconditioning their way of working with things, they're giving up on the knee-jerk reaction of ego to grasp or let go or fight or do this or that or try to strategize their position or to get better, not to get worse. When awareness is prioritized, then it's the experience that ego may have with it is this feels pretty lonely, or this feels pretty, this is like, I'm not getting anything out of this. So that's why we need a path. That's why you need a teacher. When I say you need one, I don't know what you need. But if you come this direction, then that's what I'm going to say. Because that's what my situation was like. I needed help. I got help. And that's why I'm still here. And so awareness as space, it's misunderstood because when we first see the space, the ego wants to say, I don't know. I don't understand this. I feel confused. I feel lost. I feel all of the kinds of things that ego tries to fill up the space with instead of just space. But as you practice, as you go along, and everyone is a little different. It's a little bit, there's a little bit of relativity coming into this, just enough to balance. We're still embodied. We're in a human form. We're here. And we have the ability to actually experience not only this world, but the other world, which is actually not separate from this world. But you won't know it unless you realize it. You'll keep thinking there's something else. Yes.
Is just seeing the space the same as nothing to do?
Yeah. There isn't anything to do unless you do it. There's nothing. What that teaching means is there's nothing. You don't really have an agenda. And if you've received vows and you're observing the vow of a bodhisattva, then that ties you into that vow. So you need to be with all things. So you need to save all beings is another way of saying it. So, but there aren't any beings. But the beings think they're beings. So then you have to work with, if they think they're a being, then they're probably suffering. And they want something else. That's the nature of the Four Noble Truths. Suffering, discontent, dissatisfaction. I don't like it. I want something else. Even someone who's very happy is worried they're going to lose it. What if I suddenly start feeling like I did 3 years ago? Lisa.
It seems sometimes when I take that little step back to create some space without even trying to fill it up, crap just rushes in. Do I take another step back? Do I just stand there and look at the crap to just fill that space?
Both. When you just said okay, did that mean you heard what I said, or you don't want to hear anymore?
Both.
Here, you come up here. That's good. Oh, that's so embarrassing. Of course, you have a red shirt on. That's probably why. Kind of radiating your redness. So, yes, it's coming back to the actual string that we have to find to unravel the puzzle it's right in the center of that thing that you just said jumped in. So stuff jumps back into the space. That space, it's just personified. So that's why we the Tibetan path of working with negativity is and the idea of transmuting negative energy into wisdom is it's not really it's not separate from wisdom, but we don't see it because we grasp at a self and we grasp at another. We think we're here and there's somebody else out there, whether it's a friend or an enemy. So the practice part of what I would say is when something else jumps in, that's awareness. So, and then watch what comes next. Watch if you go in and try to pull that out of there, or if you join it with a bunch of commentary on where it came from, who did it, and just do nothing with it. Do nothing with it. This is not something for you to believe in, what I'm about to say, but it's something for you to consider as part of the idea of understanding its true polarity. It's unreal. It's there. It's unreal. It's like an alligator in the kitchen. We all see it in our minds. Some have it pointing that way. Some have it pointing this way. Some see a green one. Some see a blue one. Some see one with really big buggy eyes like basketballs. That's what I'm seeing. But it's unreal. It's real because, oh, there it is. Then it's unreal. Same thing with the emotions and things that come up there. It's very fishy. It's like fish in a pond. Interesting, but none of our business. More.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Gyokado asks, is embarrassment space?
Yes, it is. Embarrassment is space with somebody there to be embarrassed. Anything else? Any other questions? Good. Then I'll pick up my stick and we can do what?
Dedicate the mirror?
Dedicate the mirror. Wonderful.
I'd like to remind everybody that this Saturday is the all day already, the end of the month. So please come and participate if you can. And also our donation boxes are still in the hallway. So we appreciate your help.
May the mirror of this penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-o-san, ji-ji-u. Shi-son mu-sa-mo-ku-sa. Mo-ku-ja-o-ro-mi. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down on the light and protect Sokokoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.
How are you?